Well, the Buckeyes are working hard, getting better every day. That's at least what all of you hope. Talking Buckeyes here for the next 60 minutes. Of course, number 225 with Kevin Noon up top with me, Buckeye Huddle, the Big Me podcast. Also, and of course, College Football Playbook. You can find that right here on YouTube as well. Tony Gerdeman down below, Buckeye Huddle as well. The Buckeye Weekly podcast multiple times per week, and College Football Playbook as well. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports. Well, Steve, we'll start with you. You just came back from another trip out to fall practice. Your immediate observations.
Yeah, I had to mute that so it doesn't make a bunch of noise. Yes, it was a very good day to be at camp this morning. The Big Ten Network had their cameras there. We were expecting our Rever and our Jerry DiNardo, but I really didn't see them. I'm not sure if they were there or not, but I don't know. It was kind of the fourth straight day that they've practiced in pads, or at least the third straight day. Maybe Wednesday was the first day. I kind of get the days confused. And then they're having a scrimmage tomorrow. So it was kind of an in-between type thing that they weren't tackling to the ground or anything quite like that. It was a physical practice, but not overly so, I guess. And continue to be very impressed. And I think something that happened at the end, Emeka Buka, they basically have the team split almost down the middle with a collection of first and second team guys on one field and a collection of first and second team guys on another field. And then third and fourth team guys kind of split up as well. So they're running two fields of 11 on 11 at the same time, which is something that in all the years I've done this, I can't remember many times where they've had enough people or enough depth to be able to do that. And so to me, that's impressive that they're able to get that amount of work done. But by not having it strictly be ones versus ones or ones versus twos or whatever, it's not necessarily as crisp as you think it might be. It's a lot of hard work to get quality out of these reps, if you can follow, but they're getting a lot of work. And so at the end of the practice, Emeka Buka was in his huddle, and he's like, guys, we have a game in 2.5 weeks, which it's actually just a little over 3 weeks till they play. It's 3 weeks from tomorrow. And he doesn't necessarily sense the urgency just yet, apparently. So that was very telling to me that he kind of came out and said that. But I don't find that to be, as I said, as I found myself justifying it as I was walking away, talking to our little friend Patrick Murphy, that to me, it's not going to be perfect. And I don't think the coaches want it to be perfect. And I think that these are those dog days where you're just fighting, to get through it and working so hard, play after play after play after play, repetition to get everything down. And to me, I think that was pretty impressive what I saw today, the amount of work that was being done. I can't tell you who the starting quarterback is going to be. I can tell you that Kyle McCord made a great throw to Brandon Ennis for a touchdown. I think it was in 7-on-7. And that was very impressive. Beyond that, I can't sit here and say, it's going to be one guy or the other. Didn't see a lot of interceptions. There was an interception. A freshman, Calvin Simpson-Hunt, caught a pass that went off the hands of a walk-on receiver, may have been by Lincoln Keenholz or whoever, one of the other quarterbacks threw it. And it wasn't even on the quarterback. It went off the receiver's hands, and this freshman made an interception, which was kind of cool. But otherwise, I thought that the tempo was good. The work was good, and they're moving forward. I see a lot of improvement on defense. The pass rush looks good. And that's a lot of what I saw. and I'll listen to what Tony saw since he was out there as well. But I just basically gave him the Emeka Egbuka speech, as well as having two groups on two different fields and all the work that kind of gets done with that. I don't have a quarterback answer for you yet. And I saw McCord made one great throw to Brandon Ennis, and there was a tip pass interception. And otherwise, just kind of was football practice.
Yeah, the split set there, the first time they did it, Kyle McCord had the second team offensive line, which featured walk-ons at both guard spots. And they were going against JT Tuimoloau and Mike Hall on the defensive line. So there were times he had no time. And so, yeah, they're getting a lot of reps. I don't know how much practice they're getting, though, because there's a lot of running for your life. And when they do the splits, the split squads, they're running the same plays on each side. And there was one time when both quarterbacks had to roll out because they were getting pressured, and they both just threw it in the ground because the coverage was there and everything got blown up. So, as I wrote in my practice report today, the defensive line basically ruined everything. That's how I viewed it. JT Tuimoloau, Mike Hall, Kenyatta Jackson, very, very fast off the ball. Saw Hero Canoe making some plays. Jack Sawyer, there's a lot of explosion there, and they're still working in Josh Simmons as that left tackle. He was working at left tackle today. Josh Fryer at right tackle. Carson Hinsman still with the ones at center. I saw him go with the ones all day long. I don't think I saw Victor Cutler in there with the ones. Brian Day said on Wednesday that those two are battling right now, and that Victor Cutler has continued to improve, and now he's pushing for that job, but I didn't see him take any first-team reps with the centers. And it was Josh Simmons at left tackle all day and Josh Fryer at right tackle all day from what I saw. Yeah, I don't, let me see if I can see the comments here, but I know there's a lot of concern about a sloppy practice. And this was a lot like the first practice that I saw, where quarterbacks aren't really pushing it downfield, although Kyle McCord did more of that today than I saw him do previously. And Lincoln Keenholz was pushing it downfield a little bit. I thought Devin Brown was playing it safe and just keeping it, some dump offs and some check downs. And so I thought Kyle McCord had the better day just because he was able to push the ball further. But the second team offensive line was causing some issues for the quarterbacks, whoever was there, which is to be expected. And if that's the biggest concern that comes out of this, I think Ohio State will be fine as they continue to get this offensive line to gel. That's why Ryan Day wants something settled after practice with his starting five so that they can become a cohesive unit, because right now they're not, and you wouldn't expect them to be with three new starters.
When was the last time you guys made it to practice? This is the first time today since when?
Thursday last week, the first practice of camp.
Okay.
So this is the first practice, and then the eighth practice is what we've seen so far.
Gotcha. And you guys got to talk to players today? Coaches? Anyone?
Not today.
When's the last time you guys talked to coaches and players?
Yesterday, Thursday.
Oh, okay. Okay. Kevin, we'll hit you up next in regards to your last session with coaches and players and what stood out to you.
Yeah, we had the chance to talk to corners on Thursday. I mean, they are doing a pretty good job of keeping us in front of players and coaches 3-4 days a week. With today being Big Ten Network Day, you kind of wonder a little bit if maybe there wasn't as much urgency because everybody knew the cameras are going to be there. And, we're certainly not in the point of time of where things are going to start turning toward install for Indiana or anything beyond that. But, I think the big thing that I've taken away from players and coaches is that everybody is feeling more comfortable in their systems, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Certainly a time where most people are healthy. I mean, as you go through practice, everybody's health starts to go down a little bit. That it's, you're never going to be as healthy as you are until day one of practice. Then it all starts to kind of go away at that point. Certainly heard a lot of good things from Jordan Hancock and Denzel Burke in terms of, their level of confidence going into the season and what this may be. And I want to throw in an aside. Former Ohio State defensive back J.K. Johnson, who transferred to LSU, suffered a significant injury and might be lost for the year. So prayers up to J.K. Johnson. But I think everybody is counting down the days, just like the fans are, in terms of being a couple 3 weeks away from the start of the season, and it's going to be put up, shut up time. And even though Ohio State is coming in not as the defending Big Ten champion, they certainly feel that there's a big bullseye on their back.
Yeah, Steve, in regards to your last few sessions with coaches and players, what stood out to you?
I liked what I heard yesterday about the cornerbacks, that they're starting to make some more plays on the football, that it sounds like this is, I forget the exact names that they had, but I want to say it was like Kendall Sheffield, Damon Arnett, and maybe Denzel Ward. Does that sound like the three that played together one year and did a great job of rotating for the most part? And it sounds like that's what they'll have again with Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, and Davison Igbinosun, with Jair Brown kind of pushing right there, and maybe even Lorenzo Styles Jr. as well. So I think you've got 3, maybe 4 guys who can play at corner, who can be rotated. And they also talked about one of the corners playing the nickel position in some probably obvious passing situations as well. So I think that that was a positive. I just have to rack my brain what else we've heard beyond that. It was we're getting interviews just about every day. There weren't any today with any players or coaches, but yesterday were the cornerbacks. That was pretty good. I think we had a day with linebackers not too long ago. That, again, that's Steele Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg are going to take most of the snaps, and then C.J. Hicks, they're going to try and find ways to get him on the field as well. So Sonny Styles, the same thing at safety. It sounds like Sonny Styles is probably going to maybe be the starter at the nickel with you have the bandit is Lathan Ransom, and the adjuster is probably Jihad Carter, the Syracuse transfer, with Josh Proctor probably there waiting in the wings. So, and a few others. Cam Martinez is also, it seems, in the mix too. So things are starting to come into focus a little bit, but again, still 3 weeks to go until the first game.
I thought it was interesting today that Malik Hartford was the second-team free safety and Josh Proctor was the third-team free safety, which was a bit of a surprise. But I know everybody really, really likes Hartford. Talking to the corners yesterday, Jordan Hancock mentioned that he had been playing a little bit of nickel, getting a look in there. Davison Igbinosun said at that point he has only played outside, but I think he may have been maybe a little inside today. I'm not exactly sure on that. I did see him blitz one time from what seemed like a pretty close area to the quarterback. So I don't know if he was at nickel at that point, but they've got so many different guys that they're trying in there, and it's giving them different options and letting them know what they can do. Cam Martinez, obviously, as Steve mentioned, Sonny Styles. Ryan Day even mentioned Cody Simon on Wednesday, and obviously he's a linebacker, so it's more of a Sam thing. And Sonny Styles allows them to blur the lines between nickel and Sam. So, and as Denzel Burke said yesterday, I can't wait to see how we use him because of the different things that he can do. And talking to Denzel Burke yesterday about how the corners didn't have any interceptions last year, he said that's obviously on their mind. And he's looking for about 6 interceptions himself this year. So we'll see. But he did talk about how his confidence is higher than it's ever been. And everybody is basically the same way in terms of the corners. They're all very confident. Second year they've been in this defense. And I don't think we could stress that enough. This is the first time anybody on this team has been in the same defense 2 years in a row with the same coordinator, same scheme. Everything is familiar. They know what everything is now, know why everything is now, know what to expect from Jim Knowles. So last year was a learning process. Now they know it. And so it should show up. It has shown up in practice. when we're talking about a sloppy offensive performance in practice, I think you have to give the defense quite a bit of that credit. Denzel Burke had some breakups today. Calvin Simpson-Hunt had an interception on a pass breakup, although a few plays before that he gave up a long completion from Lincoln Keenels to walk on David Adolph, but a couple plays later, ball hit Adolph in the arms and popped up, and Simpson-Hunt grabbed it and took off with it. So, all of these guys are learning and getting better, and I think everybody's expecting a much better defense. And we have not really seen many big broken plays yet. Now, running plays, they'll blow the whistle. Brandon Ennis got deep on Malik Hartford and Sonny Styles both today in the same play. They were two of the safeties there, and he got deep and had a catch. But really, you're not seeing a bunch of big plays from this offense yet. And a lot of that is because of the offensive line. Quarterbacks maybe not taking as many shots as they should, though Kyle McCord is taking more. But you're also seeing good coverage. McCord escaped pressure today, rolled to his left, and heaved it downfield to Julian Fleming in one-on-one coverage. Looked like it was going to be a big gain, and Denzel Burke was able to knock it down in coverage. So they are making plays on the ball, which I think people should be excited about, because if it was just big play after big play, yeah, that's very exciting, and everybody would be, oh, the offense is great, but then the dread about the defense struggling again would set in, and everybody would be miserable that way.
I was going to ask about that play to Fleming. I was sitting down and didn't have a great vantage point. My dog's going nuts, and I'll take care of it in just a second. But the deep pass, it looked like he was open, and I don't know if it was underthrown or it was perfectly thrown, or that Burke made a great recovery. From my vantage point, it looked like it went in and out of Fleming's hands, but and then Burke recovered. But if you had a better vantage point of it and can tell me that he definitely got there and reached in and knocked it away, then I will go with that. Because, as I said, we were all looking at one another like, what just happened? Because it looked like a sure touchdown, and then it wasn't. So I'll take whatever you said, and I'll hang up and listen, as they say.
It's funny because I'm playing it. I was playing it through my mind afterwards and writing about it, and I'm trying to remember, did he slow up at all? Did Julian Fleming slow up for that? And I don't think it was like this blatant slow up thing. And you say it was dropped. It may have been. I was only going off of what the play-by-play man on the PA was saying, and he said, broken up by Denzel Burke, so they gave him credit for it, because our vantage point on the field over two offensive lines and a defensive line trying to see downfield is not that great, but they credit him with a PBU. So I'm going to go with the eye in the sky on that one.
Yes, let's credit the Buckeye for making the play and not for the lack of a play being made by the offense. We'll go that direction. We got Sue on the line. Sue, always appreciate you being here. And Sue's concerned, like everybody else, with early injuries. As Kevin noted, they start to get nicked up starting with day one. They'll never be more healthy collectively than they are on day one. What's the news concerning Tyliek Williams, Mijan Williams, and other injuries?
Well, Mijan was unavailable today for undisclosed reasons. Tyliek Williams hurt his knee a little bit on the first day of practice. He was on the inside working out. So that makes it seem like it's not super serious, although this is a week later and this is where he is. But these things are so common that, guys will miss a week or two of camp or practice or, 3 or 4 days. And it's just, everybody moves on. Like everybody, the train doesn't stop. So I would expect those guys to be fine until we hear otherwise. That's kind of my standing, my standing opinion. Until we hear otherwise, everybody's going to be okay. And, of course, we keep our ears to the ground, though.
There's concern in the chat about Justin Scott kind of taking a detour to recruiting. Is there any legitimate concern? What's out there that would cause people to fear losing that commitment?
Yeah, I've not heard anything at this point. I mean, recruiting is recruiting and things change, but I have not heard anything. I've not seen anything. I've only been off of Twitter, I don't know, for 20 minutes since we've been on the show. So I am not, I'm not hearing anything. I don't know if it's a case of people feeling that since other stuff is not working out in terms of recruiting, that everything needs to fall apart, or if there's just some account out there spouting stuff, or if there's anything behind it. But as of now, based on the information I have, I've not heard anything. I'll defer to the other guys, though.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either. I mean, there's always a possibility you could maybe take a visit someplace else this season, but my guess is he's into his season now with Chicago, Illinois, St. Ignatius, and immersed in that. And when he comes up for air, maybe he'll take a visit somewhere. But that's all I really know at this point.
Now, you guys obviously noted some Kyle McCord throws. On the other side, of course, is Devin Brown. Anything there, as you mentioned, Tony, tough to get a read on the quarterbacks when they're running for their lives. You want it to be realistic, want to have pressure in their face and from the edge to simulate a game-like situation. But still, if they can't run a play, it's kind of difficult. But your thoughts about anything you saw to Devin Brown, either one of you, in the last week?
Yeah, I'll just start and then Kevin can go. But, Devin obviously did some running today, and he's the more mobile of the quarterbacks. But Kyle McCord isn't a statue. He was escaping as well today, and he can roll out and he can throw. I thought, like I said, he had a better day. He was pushing the ball further downfield and making some waves there. But I'll be interested to see, not that we will get to see, but how they both do with the first team offensive line in the scrimmage on Saturday. And they'll chart everything. They'll look at everything. They'll take all of that into account. And as Ryan Day said, it'll also come down to the eye test and the gut. But right now, I thought today was a good day for Kyle McCord, as much as it could be with as little time as he had to throw on some of his snaps.
Yeah, I'll jump in just based on what I saw in practice one and kind of just, talking to people and everything else. Yeah, it sure would be great if we could see the scrimmage tomorrow, but that's not meant to be or whatever. But yeah, you are dealing with a lot of cases of where these guys are having to kind of run around a little bit and practice, you're not taking guys to the ground and everything else, and you're being asked to hold, to hold up a little bit on what it is you're doing. So this isn't always going to be a real indicator of what's going forward. I mean, I've got into a debate with some people on social about why Ryan Day hasn't named a starter, and I was like, well, what does he have to gain by naming a starter? What is the upside there? And people say, well, it's reps, and I'm like, well, if they're running two fields, everybody's getting reps anyway, and we're not in install, so there's no real necessity for it. But both of these guys certainly are able to sling it. I mean, McCord maybe not as much of a runner as Devin Brown, but I think they're both much more willing runners than their predecessor. So it'll be interesting to see, what gets called out of all of that. But I think that Ohio State certainly has two good decisions to make in terms of whether it's going to be McCord or Brown. And I know there's going to be a lot of concern, but once a quarterback is named, then the stories are just going to shift to, did Ryan Day pick the right quarterback at that point? So it's kind of a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, I've been reasonably impressed with both guys. I don't think they're going to be the reason why Ohio State doesn't win a game this year. And I think that the defensive line, to me, is picked up kind of right where they left off in the spring. Caden Curry, I thought, made a couple of really nice plays today. Kenyatta Jackson as well continues to grow and develop, and so those are good things. I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. I am a little bit concerned about the injuries with Tyliek Williams and Mike Hall. Got a little dinged up today, but those are two of your three very, very important defensive tackles. Although you've got Tywone Malone now as well, the transfer from Ole Miss, and he's got a big body. He looks like he's potentially a big get there at defensive tackle. So we'll see how he pans out this season. But I'm not I'm not down on the quarterbacks in any way, shape, or form. I think if they're given the time to perform, they're going to play pretty well. So I don't, I'm not going to worry about what you can't control. I mean, that's just, I think you got to get a few games into the season, and that'll be when you have the true assessment of what you've got. So, I mean, they've practiced for exactly 1 week. They've had 8 practices. So I don't think that you can get too wrapped around the axle just yet.
I was just about to make the statement that Kevin made. What do they gain from naming a starting quarterback? However, it almost has the feel, and maybe this is just, I'm just reaching, that Kyle McCord is the starting quarterback. But obviously, he's never faced real competition outside of one game. So why not put the pressure on him? Why not make him compete for the job? And if Devin Brown blows your socks off, of course, then you got to reevaluate. But is it just me, or does it seem like Kyle McCord is the starting quarterback for this team?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think that's where things are headed. I think if he plays well in the scrimmage tomorrow, I think by the end of next week that Ryan Day, whenever next time we get a chance to talk to him, may or may not make a special pronouncement that that's what it's going to be for the first game. And then they'll spend the next 2 weeks game planning, getting ready to go play Indiana. So, and he'll get 70% of the reps or whatever percentage that they deem necessary to get him ready to go beat Indiana. I mean, this is a Big Ten game on the road. Last 2 times they've started the season, Big Ten game on the road, they've trailed at halftime, Indiana and Minnesota. So they need, can't take anything for granted. So to me, that's that may be where things are headed, provided he gives them what they want to see in this scrimmage tomorrow.
I saw one of our great Notre Dame followers on Twitter bragging about a halftime score just a few minutes ago. So, so those halftime scores must be more meaningful than the final result for whatever reason. A lot's being stated nationally about Davis Igbinosun and the expectation that he will really make an impact on this defense. You guys obviously have only seen a limited portion of time. You can only watch so much and watch 100 players at the same time. But anything there that's stood out to you in regards to seeing that, okay, yeah, this guy stands out. He could be an impact.
Sorry, turn it off mute. He's looks different than a lot of corners that I've seen before. I mean, he's just a big body out there. I mean, and it's not a big body who's miscast and just being asked to play a position that doesn't fit him. I mean, he seems to be really good at what it is that he does. Now, is he, do you need to sit there and say that he's like the leader of the secondary room? No. I mean, he's only been in the system for a couple months, and, you just have to kind of go with it. But I think that there's a lot of reason to be very optimistic about what he can be. And I think the biggest thing is that this is not one of these 1-year rental type of transfers. He's going to be in the program for a couple few years. So I think he's somebody that you can sit there and, what you get from 23 is going to be very significant. But I think what his impact is going to be in 24 is going to be that much more as some other guys move on, as they get to the end of their eligibility or get to have to make some decisions about what they want to do with the draft. But I've liked what I've seen out of Davison so far. I mean, is it all perfect? No, but I can't go out and say that anybody that I've seen in any of the practices ever, hit 1,000. That's just not the case. That's just not the case. That's not the way that it works. But he has a different look to him than a lot of guys that we've seen, and you kind of just wonder how Ohio State didn't get in on him really more the first time around, because that's what I want my cornerback to look like.
I don't know if you guys can hear me. I keep getting frozen, but yeah, Davison is different than anybody else they have. He's 6'2", he's long, he's strong, he's tough. I'm really interested to see how they use all 3 of those guys, and I think a rotation would be perfect. If they don't need to rotate and they could play them all 3 in enough scenarios, that's great. But remember, if you got 3 corners out there, there's a chance that Sonny Styles isn't out there. So I thought you wanted Sonny Styles out there. If you got a third cornerback out there, there's no opportunity for CJ Hicks to maybe get in there. And I know you guys want CJ Hicks. So there's a lot of pieces that they'll be putting together. In terms of Drowsy Dragon, the top 15 defense is realistic this season. In terms of total defense, they were number 14 last year. So, and they would have been top 10 except for those last 2 games. And so that's how good they were for a large portion of the season, that those 2 games only dropped them to like 14th in the nation in total defense. So a top 10 should be realistic if we're only talking about moving up 4 spots, but it can't be top 5 for 11 games and then top 50 for the final 2 or whatever. It needs to be
Bottom 50.
top 10 all season long. Yeah, exactly.
You have 535 yards, you're bottom 50. 42 points.
Yeah, you're bottom 15 or 20 at that point. Talk about way too early preseason expectations and evaluations by people. And I know most of them are just trolling, but one of the disadvantages of doing what I do is that I belong to about 25 or 30 Facebook groups that involve, fan bases from Michigan, Penn State, and others. And boy, they really took it to CJ Stroud last night. So we have morons out there that are making evaluations on quarterback play after 1 preseason game and 13 pass attempts.
I thought he only threw 4 passes, didn't he?
Did he only throw?
He only played 2
series.
series.
Only like 2 for 4.
Yeah, 2 for 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
1 series
He
ended.
throw a pick.
There you
go. Whatever. Hey, did we win? As Luke Fickle once said, did we win?
I remember Browning Nagel when he started for the Jets as a rookie, threw for like 700 yards in his first 2 starts, and then really did nothing else after that. So what you do in the beginning is almost zero bearing on what you'll do eventually. What you do in the first quarter of a preseason game has absolutely no bearing on anything, including the second quarter of a preseason game. It's all trash.
Yeah, it's been quite the joke to see these morons on social media trash CJ Stroud for throwing 4 passes in a preseason game. But there you go.
He's on the worst team in the league, and they're going to be the worst team in the league probably for a couple of years. It takes a while to dig out of that hole. So
The Arizona Cardinals say hello. They're terrible too.
Yeah.
Well, we go from the granular to the view from the top. And of course, after 18 years, Gene Smith has decided that June of 24 is a good time to step away. And of course, it's been an extremely successful run for him. He leads the largest athletic department in the country. When you add up all the athletes, all the sports, all the revenue, all the budget, and it is the highest revenue football combined with men's basketball juggernaut. So, Steve, we'll start with you in regards to your first thoughts once you heard the news.
Yeah, it kind of came by surprise, but it's obviously something that's been thought and talked about for a while. I mean, Gene Smith, I believe he's 71 years old or something like that. So he's been in college administration for 39 years. He's been at Ohio State. It'll be 19 full years by the time he retires a year from now. So he's had a great run as the athletic director at Ohio State. There have been a lot of positives, a lot of highs. He had 2 football national championships, 2 basketball Final Four appearances, and then some lows. I mean, you talk about, the Tat Gate situation with Jim Trussell was certainly a dark time. And the football team had to be on a bowl probation for 1 year, a postseason ban. A lot of people blame Gene for taking that, for not assessing that during the Fickle year in 2011. That way the 2012 team, which went 12-0, would have been eligible for a national championship game appearance, perhaps, but that didn't happen. And then, of course, he had to try and steer through the muddy waters of the end of the Urban Meyer era. However, all these, 4 or 5 years later, how we look back on, how that whole debacle unfolded. It was about this time 5 years ago that the poop really hit the fan. And, that thing lingered all season long, the after effects of it, and then ultimately led to Urban Meyer's decision to step down in some regard, either health-wise or because of the ordeal that he had been through, one or the other, take your pick. And so it's been a lot of good, some bad, but, he's did the best he could to steer Ohio State through a lot of those tough times. And, it's been a time of tremendous growth. I mean, you think about the revenue that Ohio State football produces. I have a lot of thoughts that I could go on and talk for days about this, but I think that whoever takes over, and we can get into speculation about who that may be, I think some of that's going to be predicated on who gets selected as the next president of The Ohio State University, since Christina Johnson walked away from that job in a huff after basically falling out with the trustees and the powers that be over there at the Ohio State College, as they used to say on the radio here in Columbus. But the big money Dilberts, I think she fell out with them. But the new president will hire the new AD, and there's some things I'd like to see done. And I think that if you have this abundance of television revenue coming in with this new Big Ten deal that's just going to keep, printing money year after year after year, I think you've got to come back to Ohio Stadium and, in particular, make the fan experience better. And that includes find ways to improve the parking situation, find ways to improve everything, lower the ticket prices from the ridiculous amounts that they charge now for terrible games, and just make it so that the experience at the stadium is 10 times better than it is right now. And I don't know how you do that, but they've really let that part of it slip here with the idea that they have to squeeze every last nickel out of anybody who cares about Ohio State. That war has been won. You've got all the money. You need to go back and make it better for your fans.
I guess I'll follow up on that one. Gene certainly, he took over for Andy Geiger and saw a lot of growth with the programs. Ohio State's still maintaining 36 varsity sports, a ton of new facilities. Some are loved, some not as much. I'm talking to you, Value City Arena. We're going to certainly remember, maybe the tough times, as Steve had mentioned, 2011 being one of them, the end of the Meyer era, guiding the Buckeyes through the COVID season and everything else that happened there. A football national championship, something like I think it was like 30, somewhere around like 30 team national championships under his time as AD and counting, more than 100 and some individual national champions as well. So, I think Gene's legacy will have plenty of high points. I think that people will focus maybe on some of the shortcomings. I was talking to a friend of mine who said that he will, quote unquote, never forgive him for 2011. And, sometimes that's what happens. And that's why that position is so well compensated, because you're not going to make everybody happy all the time. And at that point, I think he made nobody happy. But I think that it'll be interesting to see what is next with a new president coming in and picking that his predecessor or his successor. A lot of people are looking within the Gene Smith tree at names like Pat Chun at Washington State, Martin Jarmond at UCLA, Heather Like at Pitt, being the 3 off of the top of my head. I know that there's somebody else from his tree that's at Case Western. The name escapes me off the top of my head, but yeah, it took us by surprise. We knew we were talking to Gene, and we thought it was going to be mostly about Big Ten expansion and Ohio State's role in it. And then when we saw some of the dignitaries that were hanging out in the back of the room, at least for me, my mind was like, maybe it's a little bit more than that. And then we are where we are.
Yeah, after his announcement, we went and recorded did a live show on the other side of the WAC where the new extension of it is, and you're talking about Gene Smith and being surrounded by all of these new buildings that the athletic department has put in over his tenure at Ohio State. You're talking, like I said, the expansion of the WAC, and maybe the softball stadium, the soccer stadium, the lacrosse stadium, the wrestling and volleyball arena, the tennis facility, like all on the same street. And as Gene said, it's like 60 to 70% fundraising is that job. And whoever takes that over is going to have to do, I mean, that's pretty much the job. And then also find time to go follow the track meets and go watch soccer. And it's not all just about football and dealing with the football head coach. There's so much more to it. But, he did it really, really well. And yeah, he said 2011 was hell and said you'd like to have some things back. And he mentioned 2018. And somebody said, well, like what are you talking about? What would you have done differently? He's like, I don't want to talk about it today. I'm not here to talk about 2018 and all of that, what went down today and what I would have done differently. But, he does have, I don't know how you can not have regrets when you're at a powerful position or any position you're in, because you're not always presented with easy decisions. You're not always presented with win-win situations. You can be presented with lose-lose because you're dealing with other human beings and imperfect people and rules that must be abided by. So, yeah, not everything is going to be an easy decision. Like Kevin said, that's why you get paid the big bucks. And so whoever takes it over, good luck to you. And is it best if they have an idea of what Ohio State is and what it's like dealing with the Ohio State Board of Trustees and the donors and the hangers on? Probably. But anybody that they would go get from outside of Ohio State would have to come from a place similar to Ohio State, so they would understand that kind of relationship as well. But good luck to the next person, because it's going to be hard. It was hard to follow Andy Geiger, and I thought Gene Smith did a really, really good job with it.
Yeah, I too am not happy about 2011, but I'm not going to in any way make that a major black mark on his resume, because he did an outstanding job. And I think Tony summed it up. You all three did extremely well. But in regards to the lose-lose decisions that are often part of it, and or the win-lose, where the winners don't really appreciate the decision you made on their behalf, but the losers always will criticize and hate you for the decision that you made that you may not have wanted to make. But again, the rules are the rules many times, and it boxes you into certain paths that you need to go down.
And one of the things that Gene Smith has talked about is, like, he didn't want the players in 2011 to be punished by not taking it, by going to a bowl game. And like, you can understand that those players, most of them had nothing to do with the trouble that was gotten into. So if you would have, decided to take a bowl ban, which would have led to a 2012 national championship, like, I still don't know that he's going to change his mind, because he doesn't want to punish the players that had nothing to do with the wrongdoing. And on one hand, that's a tremendous perspective for an athletic director who's dealing with college students to have. On the other hand, that's a tough thing to balance when you are brought in to win championships. And yes, but it's still about 18 to 22-year-olds. And while everybody out on the outside is saying you should have taken that bowl ban, and I'm one of them, they have to look at it from a human perspective as well, regarding the players who are going through it.
Them versus Alabama wouldn't have looked a whole heck of a lot different than Alabama versus Notre Dame. I can pretty much tell you that.
It would have been Notre Dame instead of Alabama in the championship game. That would have been Ohio State, Notre Dame.
I'm an idiot. Sorry.
No.
Maybe they would have beaten Notre Dame. I don't know. That would have been interesting.
They would have beat Notre Dame. Sorry, Michael Campbell.
I'm pretty confident in that too.
Notre Dame loses those kinds of games. They don't win those kinds of games. So why would we assume they would win?
And Urban
They
Meyer
don't.
wins. Not everyone. I know everybody's going to jump on 2016 and throw out years, but man, he was 14-3 in the postseason. So yeah, Urban Meyer wins that game. Brian Kelly loses that game. Ohio State wins. Most likely, I don't know this. They were two very flawed, good teams, very flawed teams. But yeah, Alabama would be the best team sitting on the sideline, and maybe Oregon, the second best team in the country, sitting on the sideline. But the way it would have shaken out. And Tony, you just frame it really well, just in regards to, yes, the humanity of that decision. The most important people in that decision are the guys that, laid it all on the line in the weight room, on the practice field, studying and doing all the things that they did to build that their portion, put their hand on and their fingerprint on that football program to make it as good as they could, and to be victimized by other actions elsewhere and to penalize them is not right. And they were the ones that had the most investment in that program. Unfortunately, more people were impacted, meaning fans, alumni, everyone, and the history of the program and what could have been, and by the decision that he made, to where nobody really cared about playing the Gator Bowl and just putting it into what was just a bad situation and a bad season.
Yeah. I just think Gene saw an opportunity. You never want to keep somebody from visiting Jacksonville, and so when that opportunity is available to you, how can you say no to the Gator Bowl and an opportunity to go 7-6? And I'm sure everybody listening, watching right now, they still have their Gator Bowl T-shirts, framed, no doubt, perhaps autographed by Brandon Sane. I don't know. Ryan Shazier maybe.
By the taxpayer.
Yeah, that was not. Yes, it was an unfortunate situation all around. But as and Gene Smith said this week when we talked to him, all of this consternation about college sports and athletics, and he's like, everybody thinks it's doom and gloom. The best way to measure how things are going is to see how the student athletes are being treated. And right now they're being treated better than they ever have. So that tells you that college sports is pretty healthy.
And not to continue reliving a bad moment, there's no guarantee that the NC2A would have not still dinged Ohio State in 2012. It was able to do whatever it wanted to do, and it could have said, oh, we see what you're doing. You're going to sit there and submarine a bad season to try and get off the decks quicker. We're gonna whack you for 11 and 12. So there's no guarantees there. We don't know. We'll never know at this point. But I remember at the time I was trying to tell people that, because there's not necessarily a logbook that you go to and that says, all right, exchanging tattoos for merchandise and everything else warrants this result or whatever. So, that's kind of how I feel there.
Yeah. And that might have been the clincher for Gene Smith, weighing that, thinking, okay, this is no guarantee. And to deprive that senior class of this season and this bowl trip and all that, I can't do that when I don't know that this is going to be enough to sway the NCAA. So absolutely.
To what I have always said, where's the second bowl ban then? There is only one. They only banned them from one bowl. If they're going to do two, they would have done two. And that's my argument to that. The argument about this is my issue, and I wrote about it at the time. Gene Smith and his staff did not go far enough back in NCAA infraction history. They only went back like 10 years. If they would have gone 20, they would have seen this type of infraction leading to a bowl ban. And they just, for whatever reason, they didn't go far enough back. And so it cost them that bowl and that opportunity for a national championship. But I fully believe, because there's no way that you can disprove it now, so I can fully believe it, just as you guys can fully believe that they would have given them a second bowl ban. If they take that bowl ban themselves, if they self-impose it, they're playing for a national championship in 2012. My opinion.
I'm just going to blame compliance, because that's generally what I do. I just blame compliance.
I hate the rule followers.
This is completely out of nowhere, but I just have to post this because it's my favorite comment of the hour. Sue has stated, now, of course, we want as many viewers here as possible, regardless of who you root for. So Sue is not speaking for me in particular, but I just enjoyed this. Will you go away, speaking to a Notre Dame fan, if we smash your ass again?
Yeah, she said earlier in there that Notre Dame, when they beat Ohio State, the president was Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1936. That was the last time it's happened. And very few people, who are going to be in attendance would have been alive probably when that happened. You'd have to be, 85 years old or something, or 88 years old or something stupid. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Yes.
I just thought she was being flirty. I mean,
well, there's another connotation for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, Steve, if I was going to summarize my rant from many times about this rivalry, if you're 2 years old or you're over 100, brag all you want about Michigan. But if you're in that 2 to 100 range, then, the Ohio State argument's the easy one to make. So, but if you're 2 years old or 100, it's all Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
And I know I crossed lines there, Michigan, Notre Dame, but sometimes it just feels the same.
It's easy, yeah. What a schedule. Ohio State's playing Notre Dame and Michigan on the road, same year, and Wisconsin. Goodness gracious.
And Wisconsin after Penn State, Notre Dame.
Yeah, after the emotional games, yeah.
Yeah. Going on the road, yes, after Penn State because it's the Halloween game. Yeah. Speaking of which, the coaches came out with their preseason poll, and we'll remind people that usually about 8 or 9 of them will not finish in the top 25. And the number last year for the AP was actually 13 of 25.
Oh, good Lord. That's crazy.
Yes, you could throw darts better than that. But 13 out of 25 did not finish ranked. The Buckeyes at number 4.
Was Texas A&M one of those?
It, of course, doesn't matter. Yes, they snuck in at 25.
Yeah.
Yes.
With 6 first place votes.
So
no Miami. That's too bad. That is a little. I don't know. Is that surprising that they didn't sneak in there? There's every year there's hope for Miami, but I think what has happened is maybe Florida State has taken all of that hope, that ACC Florida hope, and it's just everybody has given it to Florida State now, and they look to be challenging for the ACC and maybe leaving the Hurricanes behind for now.
I have no opinion on the preseason polls.
I know,
which is a lie. I just don't want to get off on a downhill rant.
Was it Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Ohio State? Was that the top 4?
Yes.
Yeah.
LSU at 5.
Yeah.
What about the Ducks?
Where were the Ducks? I'm guessing 11, 12.
I was going to say, I thought they were in the top dozen or so.
Somewhere around there.
Yep. And Notre Dame right around 10 or 11.
Grossly overrated once again.
That's for you there, Shamrock boy.
No, it's not. It's just a statement of fact. I'm
just kidding.
I'm not directing at anybody.
I'm just kidding, Michael. I'm just kidding.
No, he deserves it.
So between the three of you, when you approach, I'm trying to bring us back here. Between the three of you, okay, are you, when you're presenting a top 25, that is not some conglomeration like Steve does with all the major polls, but your own top 25, are you making a prediction? Like, are you looking at the schedule and saying, and I'm talking about a preseason top 25, because obviously once they start playing, then people are all over the place in terms of how they evaluate games. But are you making a prediction, or are you basically saying these are the 25 best teams in the country in order? I don't care what the schedule is.
I hate the prediction aspect of polls. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think you do. Who do I think would win between 1 and 2? That's 1. Who do I think would win between 2 and 3? That's 2. And you do it based on who you think the best team is. predicting something annoys me because, like I said, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're looking at somebody's schedule and like Georgia's schedule, yes, based on schedules, they should be number one. Based on talent, they should probably be number one. But when I'm making predictions for a season, I'll definitely, that's when you look at schedules. But ranking and predictions, I think, should be two separate things. That's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, I think it's hard to do because it's a lot of apples and oranges. Like, how does Clemson stack up in a ranking against Penn State? You know, they're like totally disparate. They don't play each other, and it's just kind of difficult, you know, to really grasp which of those teams, which were 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever last year, are going to move into the top five, and which teams that were in the top five are going to move out. I hate to take whatever happened at the end of last year and just say, well, that's our starting point for this year. Here we go, you know, and reprint the final top 25, you know, at the end of the year, because it's never, ever going to be the same from one year to the next. And that's where you have to put some thought process into it and say, this team lost their starting quarterback. This team lost 4 first-round NFL draft picks. This team gained, like Notre Dame, gained a really good quarterback in the transfer portal. This team gained, you know, a new coach or a new coordinator who's going to take things in a better direction. So to me, I think there's a lot of variables, and I did try on mine to plot some of those out. But then to sit there and stare in the face of the schedule that is just too much, I mean, and not attach a few losses to some of these teams that have these outlandish schedules, then I don't think you're being realistic. So, yeah, it's hard to do. It's not an easy thing to do because there are so many unknowns, obviously, and you know, you're never staying the same. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And it's very rare that you're, you know, I mean, Georgia was number 1 2 years in a row. But typically everybody moved either up or down from the year before to last year, and we'll do the same this year. And it's just it's way too difficult to try and pinpoint who's going to do what without, I mean, you could study a team all day, you know, take a month and study all the top 30 or 35 teams, and then maybe have an educated guess about it. But it's hard.
I mean, just try imagining you're looking at is Notre Dame better than Marshall? If you're trying to rank these two teams, like, how do you decide that? Is Notre Dame, are they better than Stanford? How do you decide that? You know, how do you even know? Gosh.
It's too bad they don't have a way like they could play, you know, each other, and then you would know.
It's strange how you arbitrarily took Stanford and Marshall. Yeah, of course Notre Dame's better than both of them. They're awful. You know,
they're Notre Dame.
A group of 5 team and one Stanford. They won 3 games last year.
They're Notre Dame.
Jordan, appreciate the contribution there, sir. Thank you for that. Any thoughts on the Block O recipient this year?
I think it needs to be somebody who can actually wear the number. I know it's all well and good to sit there and put it on an offensive lineman, but by rule they can't wear it. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to say Xavier Johnson. I'm going to say Xavier Johnson, somebody who worked his way up from a walk-on to a scholarship player, just continues to force his way onto the field. I think that there's some of the things that they want that Block O jersey to represent that are in Xavier Johnson. And really, at this point, all you have to do is just take the 1 off of his current jersey and he's there.
Slide the 0 over. You know, I'll throw in my 2 cents. I did a column about this for Bucknuts a couple weeks ago, and I found there are a lot of pretty good candidates for this. I think Tommy Eichenberg is obviously a candidate at linebacker. I think Cade Stover, for him, it'd be really easy. You just have to take the middle bar in the 8 out, and then you've got a 0. So that works out perfectly for him. And they don't even have to, you know, stitch up a new jersey if they did that. or just use a red magic marker and just color it over that. But those are two of them there. Xavier Johnson is a very good choice. You're typically looking for guys that are in their fourth or fifth year who are in a leadership position. Those guys are probably all captains. Man, I'll think of another. I had a list of 6 or 7, and like Matthew Jones is probably not a serious contender. He's been there longer than anybody, it seems like. I don't know. Those are some of the ones that I probably had thought about. I had Mijan Williams as kind of a dark horse on mine. This is 4th year, I believe, and he has another year left, I think, if he wants to come back. But, it's weird. A lot of guys have another year left. But I fully believe out of the 22 starters on offense and defense, they're going to lose like 14 or 15 of them off this team. So, yeah, it's going to be a mass exodus after this season.
Yeah, I'm on the Xavier Johnson train. I think that's who it should be. Wouldn't be shocked if it's Cade Stover, but Xavier Johnson, former walk-on, has done everything. Was supposed to be an important piece and was an important piece of the receiving room last year. And then they needed him at running back. And he, without fail, he moved over. And that's something Tony Alford told me in the preseason that he would do, because he'll do whatever they ask and he'll be prepared and he'll work extra. So everything they say the Blocko is about, that's Xavier Johnson. And this is a guy who still he talked to one of his media availabilities last year. He talked to us for 45 minutes. Some guys will talk for 5. And he was there for 45 minutes, just, telling his story, answering questions. He's a really good dude. And I would be a little surprised if it's not him at this point.
Yeah, I think we got a pretty good handle on it. I think it's going to be one of those 3 or 4 players, because I'm looking at the roster and nobody else really jumps out at me that would be a strong contender.
Ryan Dawes, your contribution is worthy of, some airtime and it allowing to kind of resonate with everyone. There we go. We've got Michigan plus Notre Dame equals crap, poop, whatever you want to go with there. Only mostly joking. I just read them.
Well,
thanks, Ryan.
Other than Ohio State, you want them to win all their games so that when Ohio State beats them, it means something. You have wins over a couple of top 5, top 10 teams. That's about all I would say about. That's all I have to say about that. But I think that's an old Andy Geiger line that you're only as good as the company that you keep and the teams that you play. And the years when Ohio State would beat up on a 5-7 Michigan team, the only people who really cared about that were in Franklin County, Ohio. There was nobody else in the country that thought that meant anything. So, you want the teams you play to be at their best when you play them and to have a great year so that it reflects well on you and pumps up your own resume and ranking and certainly everything. I mean, they're going to have to beat some really good teams to knock Georgia or whoever wins the SEC out of the number 1 position. And why is that important? Well, if you're number 1, then you play number 4 potentially in the playoffs instead of being 2 versus 3, which is probably a tougher road to go. So plus, what's our feeling if they somehow did get number 1? Would you want to see Ohio State fly all the way to California to play in the Rose Bowl against number 4? Or would you rather have them play marginally closer to home in New Orleans as the number 1 team? And probably part and parcel of that is who would they be playing? If they're playing LSU, then hell no, you don't want to play that game in New Orleans. But you definitely want to choose the Rose Bowl for that one. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that scenario? Where would you rather be? That's a tough one.
It'll be interesting. I'll just throw this in real quick, Kevin. If it's USC in the Rose Bowl or LSU in New Orleans, you got to go to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of talk that it's going to be 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams. I mean, what I've seen in terms of the predictions and things of that nature. But I would say the Rose Bowl. Selfishly, I want to go back to New Orleans and go to Bourbon Street. But it's not up to me. So I think that there are more scenarios where the Rose Bowl works.
Dickie Brennan's, Mike Anderson's, the beignets, Harrah's. There's a lot of good reasons to go to Bourbon Street, obviously. A lot of good reasons to go to New Orleans.
Kevin, what's working there with Buckeye Huddle and the Big Me Kickoff podcast?
Yeah, I actually was just chatting in the private channel saying I need to bail because here in 22 minutes, Big Me Kickoff will be live here on youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. We'll be talking about a lot of the same things, practice, expansion, whatever else. We never go in with much of a plan, so be sure to join us on the Big Me Kickoff. If not, it'll just be Tony and myself talking to each other for about 15 minutes and then calling it a day.
8 minutes ago started the Oklahoma live stream we've got on the Oklahoma channel, so everybody join us 8 minutes ago for that. Tony, what's going on there?
I wrote a practice report from what I saw today, so you can find that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Also wrote this morning about Sonny Styles and what he could bring to the defense, so check that out there.
Steve.
I'm just going to be working on practice pictures today and going to work on a couple special things here in the next couple of days. I have to move my daughter to Miami University in Oxford tomorrow, move her furniture there, and then she'll be leaving us for the fall. I can't believe it's time for this already, being the summer has slipped away. So, yeah, season's almost here.
Join Kevin and Tony in 20 minutes or, Oklahoma talk for 2 hours. Wow. Okay. I think you're going to join Kevin and Tony in 20 minutes. So go do that, and we'll see you soon here at Buckeyes Live. We'll be back next week.